Welcome back to the channel and more Horus Heresy. Today we are playing 2,500 points of Death Guard versus Imperial Fists. The mission we are playing today is Blood Feud, and we are not using the night fighting rules. Before we begin the first turn, let's take you through the forces. So here is my force for today. So my HQ is Callous Typhon. It's my only HQ today. And moving over to elites, I've got 3 apothecaries, one of which has a Volkite charger. And my 2 dreadnoughts, one has Gravis las cannon, Power Fist with graviton gun and a Havoc launcher, and the other has 2 Gravis autocannons. Troops, got 2 tactical squads. Almost the same. So one sergeant has a Power Fist, and the unit has chain bayonets, and the other sergeant has Lightning Claw, and they just have bayonets, both of Nuncio Vox and Vexillas. My support squad is 5 Volkite Calivers, and there's an Augur scanner in that unit, and I've forgotten the name of the Rite of War. Oh, the Reaping. So my heavy support squad is a troops choice, and we have 10 with missile launchers, and there's an Augur scanner and Nuncio Vox in the unit. There's my Grave Warden squad. All got assault grenade launchers, Power Fists and Death Guard projectors, apart from one who has a heavy Alchem flamer. Next up is my Spartan, 2 las cannon arrays, twin linked heavy bolter, multi-melter, and it has the flare shield upgrade. And finally my Kratos. That has the Kratos battle cannon, and it's taken the flashburn shells, and we've got 2 las cannons, 2 autocannons, a heavy bolter, and a dozer blade, and that comes to 2,494 points.
So here's my Imperial Fist army for today. I'm using no particular rite of war this time. So, HQ choices. We start with my Warlord. That is a Cataphracti Praetor with a Thunderhammer and a Vigil Pattern Storm Shield. His Thunderhammer is mastercrafted, and I have given him a teleportation transponder. I also have a Chaplain here with a Power Maul and a Power Sword. Elites, there's an Apothecary here. He's just got a Bolt Pistol and Chainsword. And I also have 2 Dreadnoughts, one with a Helical Targeting Array and 2 Gravis las cannons, and one with a Havoc Launcher and 2 Gravis autocannons. Onto troops, we have 2 identical tactical squads here. It's just a sergeant with a combi melter and a Vexilla, 10 man. And we also have an Indomitus Terminator squad outfitted with Volkite chargers and Thunderhammers. Fast attack, these phalanx warders here with axes and shields. Heavy support, a Land Raider Phobos, and my usual 10-man heavy bolter heavy support squad. And Lord of War, I'm using this Storm Sword here. This thing is actually all magnetized, so expect me to use all the different variants in the future, but today I'm just using a standard Storm Sword with only 1 set of sponsons. And of course a dedicated transport, I have a Rhino right there. And that is 2,497 points of Imperial Fists. And very quickly, one little detail that I forgot to mention, the Indomitus Terminators also have a teleportation transponder.
I won the roll to choose deployments, and I chose this quarter. So, what have we got here? We've got a tactical squad with an apothecary, another tactical squad with an apothecary, heavy support with apothecary. Yep, my support squad is there underneath. Both my dreadnoughts are there. Kratos and Spartan. Inside the Spartan is Typhon and the Grave Warders.
Okay, so here's my army deployed here. Starting over here, I have my Contemptor with the Gravis autocannons. Then one tactical squad in this crater here. This Rhino with the other tactical squad inside of it. My Storm Sword. My other Contemptor with the Gravis las cannons. My heavy support squad is up here. And the Land Raiders here inside it are the Phalanx Warders, the Chaplain and the Apothecary. And in Deep Strike Reserve I have my Praetor and the Indomitus Terminators. So, I'm going to roll to try and steal the initiative. I did not. On to Death Guard, turn 1.
Death Guard movement phase. This tactical squad ran over there. They just move around the corner. They're going to see if they can get some shots off against the heavy support squad up there. Kratos just moved round, drawing line of sight to the... I've already forgotten what it's called. Stormblade?
Storm Sword.
Storm Sword. Support squad ran. They stayed where they are. Dreadnoughts just shuffled over to get out of the way of the Kratos. And the Spartan moved half speed, as did the Kratos, so that they can get some shots off. Right, let's do some shooting. Kratos went all out, firing at the Storm Sword. I did manage to cause one hull point, and the heavy bolter fired at the heavy support squad up there, but they saved the wounds. Spartan had a go, firing its last cannon arrays into the Storm Sword, and I actually managed to do 5 hull points to it. Excellent. That's it down to half strength already. Next up were the 2 dreadnoughts. So, last cannon dread fired at the Storm Sword, and the autocannon fired at the Rhino. Failed to cause any wounds to the Storm Sword, but I did get a crew shaking result on the Rhino. Next up, the heavy support squad fired at the Imperial Fists heavy support squad. I managed to kill 7 of them, and in their returning fire, they killed 2 of me. And finally, this tactical squad fired at the heavy support squad. I killed another 1, and the Imperial Fists now owe me a morale check.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're good. That ends the Death Guard turn 1. Now on to Imperial Fists turn 1.
Okay, movement. Starting over here. So, the Dreadnought moved up. These guys moved up with the -2 to move because of the crater. The Rhino sort of Tokyo drifted up there, and then they disembarked and moved up. This thing moved a bit forward, just so it can get the Spartan in its front arc and those guys in its centre line. This guy moved up, they stayed where they are. And the Land Raider moved up onto shooting. Okay, so these guys fired right here. You might have some trouble seeing them. They killed 3 of these guys, and then they returned fire with crack missiles and killed them. Okay. My 2 tactical squads fired. This one fired into this tactical squad and killed 3, and this one fired into this tactical squad and killed 2. Okay, the Contemptor Dreadnought over here fired everything into those guys. I killed 1 of them with my autocannons, and the Havoc Launcher missed. It scattered into the Special Weapons squad, but it didn't kill anyone. Right, Land Raider fired. It fired its Gravis las cannons into the Kratos and managed to stun it, which is quite good. And Heavy Bolter into the Heavy Support squad, but failed to kill anyone. So the Storm Sword has fired. It fired its Siege cannon into the Spartan. I immobilized it, and then one of the las cannons did another hull point. I fired all my Heavy Bolters into them and killed 3 of them. Then I fired the Havoc Launcher and the other las cannon into them, killing another 2. Okay, the Dreadnought tried to fire at the Spartan because of its damn flare shield thing. Did nothing. That's the end of my shooting phase. Let's do some morale checks for the Death Guard.
Okay, let's do it for these guys first. They passed. How many of those died?
5.
Not these, those.
Yeah, 5.
5 of them died?
Yeah.
I didn't realise it was that many. They're okay.
And 2 of them, which isn't enough.
Not enough to check.
Okay, that's the end of Imperial Fist turn 2. On to turn 1. Imperial Fist turn 1. On to Death Guard turn 2.
So this squad has taken up position to see if we can remove that one. They're there for backup. They've just advanced up, seeing if we can do some damage with the Valkites. Nah. That thing rearranged itself because I'm Death Guard and I can still move when stunned. Dreadnoughts didn't move because they're okay where they are. Typhon and his Grave Wardens got out because their transport is now immobilised. How annoying. And they just made sure they were back in coherency. Right, let's do some shooting. So the Spartan fired its last cannon rays at the Storm Sword and did 1 hull point. Multi-melter failed to cause any damage against the Land Raider, and the Heavy Bolter caused damage, but they all saved. Curses. The snap-firing Kratos laid into the Shadow Sword, but obviously I failed to do anything. However, the Heavy Bolter did manage to cause a wound on that squad all the way over there. Ooh. Dreadnoughts next. So the last cannon Dreadnought fired at the Storm Swords, and I actually managed to get a penetrating hit, but only caused a total of 2 hull points to it. And the Gravis Autocannon 1 fired at that Contemptor Dreadnought, but failed to cause any damage. Infantry action next. The missile launcher fired at the Rhino, but failed to cause any damage. That squad furied, and I killed 3. And then that squad furied, and I didn't kill any. And finally for my shooting phase, my Volkite squad killed another 4 of those tacticals. So, you owe me a morale check.
I'm good.
You're good. Are you?
Yeah, it's 8.
If your sergeant's still alive.
Of course he is.
Oh, he is. Right, I'm not doing any charges. Yes, I am. Yes, of course I am.
You are?
No, I'm not. They're not relentless. That doesn't matter.
Does it?
They're remorseless. Never count as moving.
You still fired rapid fire weapons.
I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't still charge. Okay, no charges. No charges. There's not really much chance that Terminator squad can charge that Land Raider, is there? No. Way too far away. Okay, that brings my second turn to a close. Let's see what the Fisties can do to retaliate.
Okay, so Imperial Fist movement phase for turn 2. Everything here just kind of moved up a bit. The Rhino pointed itself at those guys. The Storm Sword I figured is pretty much okay where it is. Everything's in its firing arc, and all its weapons has the range, so that's probably going to stay there for the rest of the game. Dreadnought moved up a bit, and this Land Raider moved up combat speed and then disembarked the Phalanx Warders, Apothecary and Chaplain. And they are staying where they are so they can fury the Legion. And one more thing to mention for my movement phase, I did attempt to deep strike in my Praetor and the Indomitus Terminators, but I failed the roll. On to shooting. Okay, so the Storm Sword fired. It fired its main cannon, 1 las cannon into that. I managed to only do 1 hull point, but I did manage to stun it, which is good. It fired its other las cannon into that. It only did 1 hull point, but I managed to shake it, which is also good, so long as it's snap firing. Then I fired the Havoc Launcher and 2 heavy bolters into those guys. I managed to kill 1, and the other heavy bolter into these guys, and I did nothing. And also, I've just realised I forgot to mention my first shooting, which was this, with its twin 2 Gravis cannons into that. I did 2 hull points, and this and its 2 Gravis cannons into that, and I did 1 hull point.
1 or 2.
Yeah. It's suffered 3 now. Okay, over here, the Dreadnought fired all its guns into that squad. It only managed to kill 1 though. Then this squad, I Fury of the Legion to them, and I also fired the Sergeant's Combi Melter because it's probably going to die, and I killed 2. Okay, this Rhino fired and it managed to kill another 2 of them. And also they fired and managed to kill 1 of them. Okay, these guys fired, and then the Death Guard around, but they could return fire and killed like 7 of them. Okay, charging. Okay, so this unit here that was always a chaplain, it's just a chaplain, nothing else. I charged. I'm going to issue a challenge. Well, that went horribly. I died. That's the end of Imperial Fists turn 2. On to Death Guard turn 3.
Over here we have some shuffling around of infantry to line up shots. There we go. Terminator's just moved closer to that Land Raider. Get nothing else moved. It's all fine where it is. Okay, let's do some shooting. Started off with the Spartan and the Kratos firing at the Storm Swords, but they're both snapshotting, so predictably nothing happened. Heavy bolters fired at the tactical squads, but failed to cause any wounds there. Both of my dreadnoughts fired at the Imperial Fist dreadnought there, and I managed to cause 2 wounds. Missile launcher fired a crack at the Rhino and managed to shake it like a Polaroid picture. Okay, that tactical squad managed to wipe out his tactical squad, and shots from this tactical squad and the Volkite squad managed to kill 3, was it?
Yeah.
3 of those, which means morale check.
Yeah.
Oh, they failed. Run away!
Don't I get to reroll that because of Exilla.
And in the assault phase, managed to charge that Land Raider, and I glanced the thing to death. That is the end of the 3rd turn. On to the Imperial Fist, turn 3.
Okay, movement phase, not much moved. Pretty much that tactical squad moved up, and they deep struck in over here. Shooting. Okay, big tank. I killed 2 of them and did 1 hull point on that.
Which
wrecked it. Yeah. Next. Okay, this dreadnought fired into that special weapon squad and managed to finish them off. Okay, so they fired into them and killed another one of them. Rhino snapshotted but failed to hit. These guys. Right, these guys fired, they did 1 wound, and they did 2 wounds back to them. Charging phase. So this combat here went rather well. So the Praetor and Typhon were in a challenge. The Praetor did 3 wounds to Typhon, and Typhon did 1 wound to the Praetor. In combat, I lost 1 Terminator, and he lost 4. That marks the end of Imperial Fist turn 3. So, Death Guard turn 4.
just a bit of shuffling this turn, so they're moving to make sure their weapons are all in range of that tactical squad. Dreadnought's moved. I think we're going to need some help in that combat there. And that's pretty much it. Let's see what this Kratos can do this turn. Right, the remnants of the 2 tactical squads fired at that tactical squad, but I only killed 1. Let's see what else I can do. I fired a single crack missile into tactical squads to force it to take a morale test at the end of the phase. So let's hope my gamble? Yes, my gamble paid off. So 2 Gravis autocannons fired into that tactical squads. There's only 1 left. That just leaves the Kratos to fire. So I think I'm going to fire AP rounds and a las cannon and a heavy bolter of that Dreadnought, and the other las cannon at that Rhino. Okay, so I just did 2 wounds to that in the end and nothing to the Rhino. So that lone Marine owes me a morale check.
Yep. Yeah, he's the sergeant, he's good.
Curses. So this combat's resulted in all my Terminators and Typhon dying, and 2 of yours died?
2 of mine.
2 of yours. So we got 1 Dreadnought against 2 Terminators, including his Praetor. But that ends my 4th turn, so let's see what the Fisties can do.
So, movements. This group stayed where it is, this Dreadnought stayed where it is. In fact, the only thing that moved was this guy, so he could get close enough to use his melter gun on the Kratos. Shooting. Okay, so this Dreadnought fired, and I managed to blow up that tank. It exploded into the Dreadnought, but didn't actually cause any wounds. So the Dreadnought and the Rhino fired into this unit, and I managed to kill 3 of them, including the Apothecary. Okay, big tank. So, finished off that squad over there. I fired a Havoc launcher into this. It scattered into my guy, but he saved, fortunately. I killed 1 of them, and I did 2 wounds on the Dreadnoughts. I believe that's it for shooting. On to not shooting. Okay, and just one more thing. That thing returned fire at this and managed to do 1 wound. On to combat. Okay, this combat, the Dreadnought managed to punch the Praetor into the ground, and I failed to do any wounds. However, I did pass my leadership test. That's the end of Imperial Fists. Turn 4. On to...
So as we're winding up the battle here, let's see what we can do. So these 2 guys are staying there to try and kill that last guy. For some reason I failed to kill him. I'm in a position to charge him. Dreadnought, lining up against that Dreadnought. It's almost dead, not quite. Backed up by a missile launcher. And let's see if we can finish that guy off in combat. Right, let's see what happens. Right, so they managed to kill that last guy. He shot into the Dreadnought but failed to cause any wounds, but I took 3 wounds from reaction fire. Then he fired a missile at him but also failed to wound. That's it for shooting. Let's do some combat over here. So my Contemptor Dreadnought managed to kill off that last Terminator, bringing my turn 5 to an end.
So for Imperial Fists, the only thing that moved was this thing pivoting very slightly, so those guys are in my centre line. Right, shooting phase. Started with this Dreadnought firing into those guys. It didn't do much, but they're still there. Then the tank fired. It managed to wipe out those 2 guys, but only killed the Apothecary in that unit. And then the Dreadnought fired, and it finished off that unit. They returned fire, but they missed. I'm not charging. On to Death Guard turn 5.
6.
6.
The last hurrah as my final 2 Contemptors advance onto the enemy line. Both my Dreadnoughts fired at his Dreadnoughts, but I failed to cause any wounds. In return, I took 2 wounds on that one there. But I think I'm going to have to charge him. It's the only thing to do now. So they satisfactorily removed the Contemptor from the board. I only have 2 Contemptors left, and I have no more turns. So let's see if the Imperial Fist can mop me up.
So, movement phase. Tank. And that thing moved over there. Right, the autocannon Dreadnought fired at that and killed it, and then we remembered that Dreadnoughts blow up, but it didn't actually do anything. Okay, so everything else, including the tank, fired at this Dreadnought, but I didn't manage to kill it, and I only managed to do 1 wound. That marks the end of the game, because I don't feel like charging. So we'll be back for the wrap-up.
Right, so at the end of the game, it is 8 points to the Death Guard, and 8 points to the Imperial Fists, marking our first draw. But more importantly, the first time I haven't lost in 2nd edition. That was a very interesting battle. And one thing I have learnt, the main thing I've learnt, is that Grave Wardens are not a combat squad. They are a shooting squad. So I'm going to stop charging them into battle. But yeah. Unfortunately, that got immobilised on the first turn. His flare shield did keep it around for a while, so I'm glad I had that. And the Kratos was up against a super heavy, so the odds were stacked. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next game. Goodbye.